Hi, today I want to talk to you about which role do you play in the cycle of addiction with your loved one? A cycle is something that continues over and over and over again. And each time the cycle grows, the circle grows, it gets bigger. The crisis gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So maybe in the number one crisis that happens to you, maybe when your child is a teenager and they're caught with booze at home or they're caught drinking and driving. And then the next time there's a crisis, they end up in jail. And then the next time they end up having to serve a jail sentence, something even worse happens. And every time there's a crisis, it gets bigger and worse. And I want to talk to you about what your role is in this cycle. But first, at each cycle, like I said, the crisis gets bigger. There's an apology, there's a promise, but nothing changes. And oftentimes we ask our loved one, will you promise not to do something? Yes, I promise. But the next time it doesn't stop. So what we're really doing when we circumvent the consequences is we're guaranteeing that that next crisis will happen. When we stop the consequences from happening, each circle will grow bigger. Each crisis gets more difficult. And each time it's harder to say no because the consequences are now bigger and bigger and bigger. We each play a role. What is it that you do? And maybe what I did was different, but we all have a role. What is it that you do? It's like we have this job in the cycle, in that cycle. And I want to share with you some of those roles that we often play. But first, I want you to look at this mobile. Remember when you had your child was just an infant and maybe you had a crib with a mobile over the top and it would go in circles. You would wind it up and it would play music and it would just go in circles. And this is how the addiction circle and crisis goes. It just keeps going in a circle. And I want you to think about if one person makes a change in that circle, it can be really powerful. What if, I feel like we're often the sheep in the back following our loved one, our addicted loved one in that circle, in that crisis mode. But what if you could stop right there in your role and reverse it and go the other way? What if? It could be powerful. Our goal as parents of addicted loved ones is to get them into recovery for life, right? We want to see them go from one place to the next in the quickest amount of time. So part of understanding addiction is knowing which role we play. And here are just a few. There's the rescuer, the critic, the backseat driver, the sympathizer, the forgotten ones, and the lecturer. So let me kind of define each one. Because if you can identify which role you're in, you can become unleashed. Right now, in your role, we feel trapped. When we're in that role, we're not helping our child get well. So here's what the rescuer does. She or he is like a point guard, a quarterback. She orchestrates all the events to help her addicted loved one. Oftentimes it's the moms because moms help, right? That's just kind of our role. We ask questions like, did you pay your electric bill? Hey, did you take the kids to the dentist this month? Hey, I noticed, that you're going to a party. Do you have somebody who's going to bring you home? Like we police everything. We're the problem solvers and we rescue every time there's a crisis. We bail them out of jail and then we say, do you promise me? And they're like, yes, I promise it's never going to happen again. And for a short time, we feel really good. We believe our loved one. But guess what? our addicted loved ones can't make promises. They will use again, and the next time the crisis will be bigger. So, what happens to the rescuer when that happens? Well, you promised me. Well, they can't promise. And we become angry. And the addict will break that promise, and then they'll threaten suicide. They'll say, well, if you don't help me, I'm going to keep the grandkids from your life. I'm just such a loser. Or, then we pity them. We feel sorry for them. And so this is the cycle of somebody who rescues and then becomes angry. This goes on, and it's kind of a corresponding feeling. We get angry and then we pity them every time. And what happens after we pity them? We rescue them again. We feel sorry for them. So we think, okay, I'm going to get them out this time because they need their job, or they need that vehicle to get to work, or we need to get them out of jail because they have to provide for their family. Whatever it is, we stop them from taking the consequences of their action. And the addiction is a manipulation of the family to get what they want. So many times when I would rescue our son, he would make these promises. Why? Because then he would get what he wants. He would get what he needed. There have been times where I have been the lecturer too. And this is the person who, there's a crisis and it's like, well, everybody come sit around. Let's talk about this. What happened? Where did you go astray? What can we do different next time? And we just want to talk about it. And I'm really good at this. I want to create all these teachable moments. Well, what do you think happens? The addict agrees with everything because guess what? He wants you to bail him out. He wants you to do this. But what happens then is the crisis just continues to grow every single time. The sympathizer, this person makes excuses for their loved one. Maybe she or he blames society or someone else, like his boss. Well, his boss just never liked him. This person fuels the addict's fire, and so the addict never takes consequences for himself because, it's not his fault, it's everybody else's fault. And so, therefore, the continuation of the behavior in the addict's life continues. Then there's the critic. This is somebody who criticizes every single thing you do, maybe. So, or maybe you're the critic. So in our case, it would often be, I couldn't really talk to my friends about this because they were the critics. They were telling me what to do and what not to do. Sometimes it was my husband. Well, you shouldn't have done this and you shouldn't have done that. And so it's not helpful. But in the mobile scenario, let's say the rescuer decides, okay, fine, I'm going to take their advice. I'm going to take the critic's advice and I'm not going to help this time. Sometimes what happens is the critic ends up then taking over the role of the person who rescues that loved one. Then there are the forgotten ones. Those are the other children in the family who have had to take a back seat because all your energy is going toward the addict. Maybe it's your spouse. Maybe your spouse just feels totally left out. Maybe this is a second marriage and this child, this addicted child, is not even your spouse's. Oftentimes, those marriages crumble because we make our addicted loved ones our priority. We obsess over that and we forget about everybody else. Oftentimes our friends just give up on us because we make dates with our friends and then we end up canceling because our addicted loved one needs to be picked up from work or has to be met with his probation officer or doesn't have any money, so we have to go put gas in their car, or there's always something, right? There's always that crisis. But the forgotten ones are those who suffer from the addict's behavior and our attachment, our role to that addiction. Then there's the backseat driver. That's somebody who says, well, I'm not getting involved and you should do X, like you should do this or you should do that. or you need to bail him out of jail, or somebody needs to help him, he's giving our family a bad name. It could be somebody just in the back of your head that's always harping on you to fix this problem, right? Sometimes it's a grandparent, it's your parent. And sometimes they are the enablers, and sometimes they're the backseat drivers that are yelling at you to fix the problem or be there for your child, that you're not doing enough. And then your good old mom kicks in and you think, oh, I guess I need to go rescue because that's what everybody's telling me to do. And you want to fill that role because you don't want to be known as the bad mom, right? So why can't our addicted loved ones, why can't they see this problem? Well, one is because they're in denial. Just the very essence of the brain disease stops them. It kind of prevents them from seeing themselves from out here. They can't see themselves this way. Oftentimes I hear moms say, oh my gosh, he's so egocentric. All he thinks about is himself. He's so selfish. But it's just part of the brain disease. It diverts the real truth. There's no reasoning when the addict is there. It's like our child is buried deep inside. So to us, it looks like they're lying when in fact they're just distorting reality. Their reality is very different than reality. And sometimes you'll see a picture of somebody in active addiction, and then 2 years later when they're sober and they don't even look alike. But that sober person looking back at their addict side, or their addicted picture, they're mortified. Oh my gosh, they looked horrific, right? But when they were the addict, they took a picture of themselves. They didn't even see themselves that way. This happens a lot. So they just see themselves in a distorted way. Their reality is just not truth. But let me ask you this. Why can't you see your role in this, right? I was the same way. I didn't see my role. It's because we're so close to the problem and we're emotional. As moms, we just want to hurry up and fix this. Our child's suffering and we don't want them to suffer. Maybe nobody has explained this cycle to you before. Maybe you've never thought about it in this way. Some people, that's okay. Some people aren't introspective, and some of us don't want to believe that we are a part of the problem. No, we're not. We're not a part of the addiction problem. It's not our addiction, right? It's our child's problem. But how we respond to their choices in their addiction really does matter. And remember, we want to get them into recovery as soon as possible. Some of us, some moms, are actually addicted to the crisis of up and down and up and down. We don't even know. We don't realize that we're addicted, but it's our body's response. It's our heart. It's all the energy inside of us, the adrenaline that rushes every time we come into a crisis, that after a while we just come to expect it almost. And when it doesn't happen, we fear that it's going to happen. And so it's kind of an addiction to the crisis. And then there are some that just want to feel needed. Some people are addicted to helping because it's their way to feel like they matter, that it's their way to feel needed. And I'm not saying this is any of your reasons why you can't see it, but it does give you a chance to really look at yourself and think, am I one of these? So how do you change your role? Maybe you've identified already. You're like, yes, that's me. I get it. So all of a sudden we're just supposed to say, okay, we're going to stop that cycle. We're just going to stop being the rescuer or the sympathizer. How do we do that? Well, it's not easy. Okay. Find a support group. Join my Moms Letting Go support group on Facebook. It's a private group, so nobody can see what you post. You can read other posts. You can ask for encouragement. You can tell somebody, hey, I realize that this is my role and I want to change it. Can somebody talk to me about this? Know that as soon as you change your role, what do you think is going to happen? Your child is used to you reacting a certain way. So as soon as you say, no, I'm not going to react that way anymore, there is going to be chaos. And you have to be able to embrace that, or brace yourself for that. And so that's why the support group is really, really helpful. Having a counselor that you can talk to about this to help you get through it. Because when that change happens in your addicted loved one's life, when you stop fulfilling that role, you're going to need support. You're going to need to talk to other people about that. And keep in mind that only you can decide what you're comfortable doing and not doing. I will never judge anybody for feeling like they can or cannot do one thing or another. In changing your role, it's better to do baby steps, and maybe you talk to your addicted loved one when they're not under the influence, to the point where, you know what, I joined a support group and I'm going to change the way I'm responding to your choices because I have to guard my own life, right? Find that dialogue, what works for you. Journal. Sometimes just writing down everything that you're feeling can help you overcome and identify some of your weak areas. So how are you going to fill up your worry? So what are you going to replace? So instead of this role, what are you going to fill up in your life with the positives, maybe of things that you have let go of as a result of filling this role of helping your addicted loved one? Well, only you can answer that. What do you want? What do you want to do with your new time, with your new energy? Where will you go and who will you spend your time with in this place of recovery? And why do I care about this? Because you matter. I want you to leave a legacy. I want you to be the person who God created you to be. And I see that mom's pain, all the pain that we have, is not helping our loved ones. Our pain is not helping them. So if we don't take care of our wellness, we will be forced to take care of our illness. And that matters to me. And I know it matters to you. God bless. And I will see you on the next free video tutorial. Self-leadership, the most important person you will ever lead is yourself. Thank you for allowing me to guide you on this part of your journey.